I stick a lot of dogs in the wind tunnel. Uh,
Okay.
the wind tunnel, it's a really nice space. It's a clean space, and we have a nice viewing area for coaches and trainers and engineers to come and actually watch what's going on inside the test section. And so when we're doing product testing, the specialized office in Morgan Hill, California is a very dog-friendly office.
Mhm.
Occasionally, project managers and engineers will bring their dogs into the wind tunnel. And my rule, mainly for personal entertainment, is that the dog must go in the wind tunnel with the fans on for a few seconds just to see what it looks like with the fur waving in the wind. And the dogs love it. It's like sticking their faces out a car window without the
Yeah.
danger of falling out of the car. So.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre. If you're active at all, whether you're running or simply out walking for the day, you've probably experienced one of the number one problems that active people have, and that's chafing. Solpre's all-new, all-natural anti-chafe balm solves that problem while feeding your skin the vital nutrients it needs to be healthy. If you'd like to stop chafing once and for all and treat your body right, go to solpri.com to check out the anti-chafe balm today. And that's SOLPRI.com.
Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. My guest today has his master's degree in integrated physiology. He is a human performance engineer at Specialized Bicycles. If you couldn't tell by the background, if you're just watching the audio, you're missing out on all the bicycles in the background. He's a triathlete. And again, if you're not with us on YouTube, you're missing out on the stellar mustache. Welcome to the show, Jesse Frank.
Thank you, Jesse. I think I'd be remiss not to mention the fact that you have an amazing name. Not only that, but amazing initials too. So
I like him, and you too have somewhat oddly similar initials. For anybody that watched the episode or watched or listened to the episode with Dan Feeney and his wife, Melissa Mazzo. I said that wrong. I always want to do that. Melissa knows Jesse and recommended we talk to him. He does a lot of cool stuff at Specialized, so he's a great fit for the show. I always have to ask whenever somebody has such a stellar mustache, because I'm not capable of growing such a mustache. I just can't get the facial hair going on.
Just gotta rub your face every night
rub it all the time. Is that the secret?
That's the secret, yeah.
Does it make you faster? I mean, you're in the wind tunnel, so.
So a little background on the current face situation. This is the first time I've seen my cheeks in almost 6 years. I've had a beard since like 2012. Like I can't remember the last time I've seen my cheeks. And my hair was just getting so I also have a bit of a mullet going on. It's kind of hard to tell in the lighting. But my hair was just getting so long with the shelter-in-place orders and everything being closed that I finally needed to get some kind of haircut. And on social media, I follow a professional runner by the name of Craig Engels. He used to run at Ole Miss. And a few months ago, he shaved off his mullet-mustache combination, but he had just the most glorious facial hair mullet that he would sport during his races. And I remember looking at that just going, I want to do that one day, just for fun. And finally had the excuse where I couldn't get a haircut, and my roommate was going to do my haircut. So figured I might as well shave the mustache or save the mullet. Oddly enough, I could commit to the mullet. We didn't do the mustache originally. And my roommate was like, yeah, Jesse, can we shave the mustache? And I said, Matthew, give me like 10 minutes. I'm like pretty emotionally connected to my beard right now. I don't know if I can do the mustache. And like 10 minutes later, I came running down the stairs like, Matthew, shave off my beard into the mustache before I regret this. Go. So that's what's going on now. But to answer your question, in the wind tunnel, before my time at Specialized, they did a series of body hair related tests in the wind tunnel, shaved arms, shaved legs, ponytails, braids, and beards. And they found that beards did not have an effect on aerodynamics. So
interesting.
I would assume the mustache wouldn't either. And I'm keeping both the mustache and the beard. I don't like a freshly shaved Jesse. Doesn't look so good.
That's the best I could do is just like stubble, and then there's like patchy parts, and I'm like, okay, that's what I do. So I just end up shaving. But yeah, so that study that was there in the wind tunnel, I think that was like 2014, somewhere around there. The wind tunnel started in 2013, so it just turned 7
And I don't remember when they first started doing the wind tunnel videos, but it was kind of a rogue production by Mark Cody and Chris Yu, the two guys that were in charge of really designing and developing that wind tunnel.
Yeah.
And the first athlete they actually tested with the leg hair that started off this whole weird body hair portion of wind tunnel videos was Jesse Thomas.
Okay.
With the theme here of the Jesse's and body hair.
Yep.
And so Jesse shaved his legs, and they came up with what's called the Chewbacca scale for how hairy you are. Jesse Thomas is a very hairy man, so he's quite high on the Chewbacca scale.
Right.
For Jesse, shaving his legs was something like 90 seconds faster over 40 kilometers.
Yeah.
Which Mark and Chris, like, there's no way that's real. That's a fluke. But you can't put your leg hair back on after you shave it.
Right.
So I had to go find other people. And they ended up getting, I think, 6 or more people into the wind tunnel to shave their legs, and found that the range was 50 to 90 seconds saved over 40K, average of 72 or something. So, yeah, lots of weird body hair stuff going back to 2013, 2014.
Yeah, up until that point, I was not a believer. I just, it's kind of the culture in cycling to do it, but I was just like, this is dumb. Like, I'm not particularly hairy. I have a friend who is full Wookiee, but, I don't really have that much leg hair. So I'm like, yeah, it's not going to make any difference. But then, I'm also a mathematician. So I'm like, okay, well, the numbers are what the numbers are, and there's no reason to handicap myself. It's like, take 10 minutes, shave your legs. Like, it's going to be fine,
Yep. It grows back. Might be a little itchy, but it grows back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do all this, like, I'll say, like, mental calisthenics for all these various training methods and the pain we go through to get faster. It's like, well, if I can get a free 30 seconds from shaving my legs, I'll do it. No problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's easy speed there.
So you're working on with the wind tunnel now. Have you thought of any other, like, I'll say odd, I hope you know what I mean, parameters to try to test?
We've tested people in the wind tunnel with, like, spray bottles to try and get their jerseys wet versus not wet, to see if that has an effect on, like, the density of the air around them and also cooling. I stick a lot of dogs in the wind tunnel. The wind tunnel, it's a really nice space. It's a clean space, and we have a nice viewing area for coaches and trainers and engineers to come and actually watch what's going on inside the test section. And so when we're doing product testing, the specialized office in Morgan Hill, California is a very dog-friendly office. Occasionally project managers and engineers will bring their dogs into the wind tunnel. And my rule, mainly for personal entertainment, is that the dog must go in the wind tunnel with the fans on for a few seconds just to see what it looks like with the fur waving in the wind. And the dogs love it. It's like sticking their faces out a car window without the danger of falling out of the car. So just like a lot of dogs in the wind tunnel. The weirdest thing I can think of at the top of my head is the spray bottle stuff. Sorry, I don't have a very juicy answer for that.
No, that's fine. I mean, dogs are good. Sticking dogs in a wind tunnel. That's not like, I mean, you're in a very unique position. It's not like I can just decide, hey, I want to stick my dog in a wind tunnel. Like,
it's true. Yeah.
I think maybe you've become desensitized to your position already.
Yeah. And now that I'm actually, clearly I'm in my garage. There's a lot of bikes around here. I live with another specialized employee and then a former specialized employee. So there's lots of bikes, and I'm looking at one of my e-bike. And that reminds me, before my time at Specialized, to design a rain fender, the engineers actually stuck an e-bike on a little red wagon, put some tarp down inside the wind tunnel, and drew a hose into the wind tunnel and sprayed water to see how the pressure wake drew the water droplets back towards the bike, and designed a fender around that. So that's a fun little experiment. And not outside of the product side of things, we of course have a lot of our pro athletes come into the wind tunnel. Yeah. And because it's our wind tunnel, we don't have to worry about breaking things as much. Well, we have to worry about it, but it's not as big of a deal since it's our own stuff and not some third-party wind tunnel. We can kind of play around or do whatever weird questions the athletes want to do. And so we've extended our test section so we can get 5 or 6 riders in the wind tunnel at a time. And there's a wind tunnel video about this. We can only measure the aerodynamics on one rider, and that's the rider on the force balance. But if you put other athletes on rollers or trainers, you can look at the effects of pace lining and drafting and see what order the sprint lead out train should be, how far to the side you need to go to get out of the pressure wake, if you're a lead out man, your sprinter's behind you, if you're 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters off to the side, even slightly, how much is that going to have an effect on aerodynamics? And so you can look up, there's a wind tunnel video with Max Riqueze and Fernando Gaviria, both who are no longer on Quickstep, but we did a fun test with them. And then I don't think it was a video, but when Mark Cavendish was on Quickstep many years ago, we did the whole pacelining test as well.
And so what are the numbers on, because I know I've tried to look them up before and don't know exactly, just, before we got going, we're talking about like the dumb triathlete thing. So I was just like, I don't spend much time in pace lines. I've done a few draft legal events, but there really is only, I'll say a handful, but it's not even a handful. It's like 3 or 4 of them, and they're pretty much invite only, across the U.S. for amateurs. So I don't spend much time doing that, but it is a substantial amount of savings when you're sitting behind somebody. Do you know the numbers kind of off the top of your head? What that
it's on the order of like 30 to 40% reduction.
Yeah.
In drag, depending on the size of the rider in front of you, your size, what exactly the wind is like and where it's coming from, but somewhere in that order of magnitude there. So it's a pretty significant difference for sure.
Well, it always doesn't, just looking at it and even experiencing it, like I didn't anticipate that it would have such an effect, because like you're basically cruising. If I'm going to go out and go ride 25 miles an hour, like that's pretty much my top line. Like,
right.
I have yet to hit that for a full hour by myself. Mid 24s I've done, but most of the time I'm riding probably mid to high 23s, just for my power output. But it's like you get in that group, you can go 25 plus easy. You just rotate. You're going to take a little bit of brunt at the front, and then you rotate to the back, and you're all right. It's just anybody who's not ridden in a pace line, if you have the opportunity, it's just a fun experience, if nothing else. It's
super fun. And like I was saying before we started officially recording, we have group bike rides at Specialized every day. Well, in pre-COVID times, we would have group bike rides every day at 12:15. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday are super fast days, with Friday being our Friday World Championships, and whoever wins that race, we have a pseudo World Champion jersey they get to wear for the next week.
Okay.
But we look at the Strava data from those three days, and the speeds are just like, they're stupid fast for someone who's not used to seeing that.
Yeah.
And someone who, before Specialized, I didn't really ride hard in a pace line or in a peloton very much as a triathlete. So you get to Specialized, and you're doing 45 minutes, and you're averaging 26, 27 miles an hour on a good day.
Yeah.
I mean, you're tired, but you're not like totally wiped. So it's a pretty awesome, fun experience to have, to have for sure. So, I mean,
I assume that at some point, because it seems like Specialized is probably a pretty cool place to work. So I assume at some point, somebody's giving you the green light to hop in the wind tunnel and kind of optimize your own position on your time trial bike.
This is very true. Yes. There's about 3 of us who get to run the wind tunnel. And originally it was just 2 of us, and both original 2 of us were both pretty into cycling and time trials. And so we would every couple months just order some pizza in after the workday ended and test each other, because you need someone to run the wind tunnel and someone to be inside. It's pretty hard to do as a one-man job if you're trying to test yourself. And so, I've tested myself many times in the wind tunnel. I'm not particularly flexible, so my position on my time trial bike is quite high. I have pretty tight hamstrings and hips, so I can't get very low. But I'm working on the shrug and working on getting my head low. And actually, when I first got to Specialized, it was just under a year after my one and only Ironman that I've done. I did Ironman Louisville in 2016. I got to Specialized. I still had my old TT helmet. I had my old time trial bike, the kit I wore in the Ironman. And a couple months into my job, I had Shiv, I had an Evade skin suit, I had a TT helmet, an SRX TT helmet at my disposal. So I was curious, what is the difference in these pieces of equipment? I had seen the original Avenge marketing many years ago where they said, the original Avenge Vias plus the wheels plus a skin suit plus an Evade helmet would save you 5 minutes over 40K. And as a college student who was not particularly rich and doesn't like spending money, I was like, no way, that's true. That's marketing BS. I don't believe it. And so I had to, of course, see for myself when I got to Specialized. And the difference between or switching to a Specialized shivved, S-Works TT helmet, and a Vade skin suit would have given me 8 minutes of free speed at the Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed Kona by about 8 minutes and 40 seconds.
Mm.
So I kind of cried a little bit when I saw that, but definitely a believer now.
Yeah.
Definitely a believer. It was a real smack in the face to make you believe it. So that was a cool first test to see. And it's also cool to toggle. You can toggle between pitchers in like one position to the next,
Mm-hmm.
and positions were matched pretty much identically. It just looks like I'm changing clothes and changing bikes. So
yeah,
it was a pretty cool test to do.
So thinking about, you're talking about not being real flexible. One of the things I've kind of seen some stuff on, but I don't feel like I've found a whole lot of definitive numbers or studies, or at least extensive on this. It's like basically the two kind of, I'll say, back styles. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about, the curved back and the flat back. Does that seem to make a significant difference? It seems like I have the curved back shape. I cannot get that flat profile. Mm-hmm. Does that seem to make a difference in terms of, you know, the kind of efficiency you can get with a rider, or is it more about like how small you can get that frontal area?
I mean, it's definitely a combination. I think a lot of the interaction also has to do with how your helmet sits against your back.
Okay.
You know, if your helmet sits pretty low and you're looking from the front and you can see the hump and the curve of your back over your helmet, that's probably not going to be very fast. But if for some reason you have a curved back and the top of the curve still sits in line with the back of the helmet or top of the helmet, it's not going to be as big of a deal. We see a lot of differences in aerodynamics from head position and helmet. And so I personally think that flat back is not necessarily a good cue to have. Mm-hmm. I haven't tested directly like the same person and only changing like, you know, a cat-cow type yoga position where you arch your back and keep it flat. I haven't necessarily tested that on its own. But the thing I tell people, the easiest way you can get some improvement in your aerodynamics is focus on your head. A lot of age groupers, a lot of people new to triathlon kind of ride like they're a periscope on a submarine. You know, you're in your barrel position, your head is kind of up, you're looking for the potholes, you're looking for the next coffee shop. Right. You don't want to have your head super high up. You want to drop your head as low as you can. So really, you're not seeing very far in front of you. Maybe just 6 feet in front of you. Keep that proper social distance. You know, just look a little bit ahead of you. That's all you need to see. Yeah. And that's the quickest, easiest way to drop your or to improve your aerodynamics. And I think the curved back versus flat back is more of a comfort issue. Okay.
See, that's why I always felt like that issue with the kind of like the turtling in the head is where my poor posture comes in to help me. So when I was going through rehab, and I mean physical rehab several years ago. So so I crashed it. I crashed at 70.3 Eagle Man. I shattered my collarbone, had to have surgery, and then go through physical rehab. The lady that was working with me was like really trying to get me to like straighten my neck out. So because I kind of have this like stuck forward neck thing going on. So it does not help the like nice straight line, slight lean I should have while running. But when I'm on the bike, like my head just ducks down naturally.
There you go.
So I'm like, you know, you win some, you lose some.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Give and take.
So you're talking about like wet shirt and dry shirt kind of test you were doing. Can you talk about what you found? Is that still classified?
We're still running some more tests on it. We haven't seen huge differences, to be honest. Okay. But we still want to kind of play around with our protocol and different materials and fabrics. So still something we're actively researching once we can get back in the office. And that's kind of the nice thing about having the wind tunnel is it was first built to be an aerodynamics research center focused on aero. But as we move through the years, we're finding we can use the wind tunnel for more and more things, and we can use it as like a thermal regulated environment. Mm-hmm. You know, we're gonna add heaters so we can make the wind tunnel super hot. You know, we're gonna try and find a way to increase humidity and make it more of an environmental chamber to look at thermodynamics, especially as we head towards Tokyo and hot weather races, and figure out how we can improve athletes' chances to stay cool and get a better performance in hot weather. So it's really a multifaceted research center now, which is pretty fun. So I'm excited to get back up there and start testing the wet versus dry jerseys and hot versus cold and all that fun stuff.
Do you have any anticipation when offices will, I assume everybody's at home right now, and then offices will open back up at some point?
Everyone is at home. So as I mentioned earlier, our headquarters is in Morgan Hill, California, which is in Santa Clara County, which is one of the harder hit counties in the state of California, as far as I know. And so Santa Clara shelter in place is still in effect right now. And until they start opening up businesses and easing up shelter in place, our office will be closed. Once it's opened up a little bit, we're still only going to allow essential personnel. So those people that have equipment at the office that really need to be at the office to do their day-to-day jobs. So someone like me. That being said, if you don't need to go in the office to run a test, you're still going to be encouraging everyone to work from home. And from what I hear, it doesn't sound likely that everyone will be allowed back into the office until early fall, end of summer.
Okay.
That's what it seems like. It's a moving target every day.
Right.
So we'll see. Working from home has been kind of nice, but our work culture is pretty awesome. It's an awesome group of people. So I do miss seeing everyone and do miss the interactions we get at the office.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something like I, kind of run my own show, and the few people that work with me, like Joe, and I have another kind of assistant that does other things, that does the video editing for me and stuff. I don't see them. They're remote. So it's like I miss out on that social interaction by being at home. I'm kind of adjusted to it, but like, I imagine if I worked at a place like Specialized, I feel like I would feel kind of emotional effects from not being able to like see people as often.
Totally. I mean, luckily, I have roommates, so I get that social interaction. I think I'm a pretty social person. Maybe introverted extrovert is the best way to describe me. I'm kind of in the middle there. So yeah. I don't think I'd be doing very well if I didn't have roommates during this whole time. But it does. And I've been riding by myself since March 14th and exercising by myself outside of ocean swims because I don't like sharks. And I want a buddy to get eaten first before me. But I've been super, super careful with that, being a bit of a Jewish mother about it with my asthma. So, but it's great. There's so many people. So I live in Santa Cruz. It's about an hour from the office, but there's so many Specialized employees that live in the area that almost every ride I go on the weekends or run, I'll run into someone from the office. I just get super excited. I'll be like an awkwardly far distance away and I start yelling and waving at them. Like, hello, friend. So that's pretty nice. It makes you appreciate your friendships and community a little bit more.
Yeah. So you're in Santa Cruz. Have you done the 70.3 in Santa Cruz?
I have. That was the first race I did in California, actually. Did that in 2017. And
I'm going to have to look that up because that may be the year that I did Santa Cruz.
Was that the year that it was delayed because of fog and it ended up being like an 800-meter swim?
No. Maybe it was because there was like zero. We still went around the pier, but there was like zero visibility. You couldn't see. Sometimes you couldn't even see the next buoy. There was so much fog.
We didn't go around the pier. They moved it to the northern side of the pier, and we just did a little triangle on the right side.
Okay, so it had to have been different years because the year I was out there, it was just, ridiculously far. And we got going on time. Me and my friend Kevin were out there doing, maybe it was 2016 we were out there, and then we were, I think I was the next to last wave and he was the last wave, and it was just chaos. I don't think I'd done an ocean swim before, number one, so then you got to deal with the nice salt water. Yep. And then it was you couldn't see, the buoys are maybe 100 meters apart, but you couldn't even see the next buoy. The nicest thing was just you've got the pier on your right the whole time.
Yep. Yeah, that's famous Santa Cruz summer. It's super foggy until 11, 12, 1, 2 in the afternoon, and then it rolls off. And as someone who likes to get their workouts done in the morning, it can be super frustrating because I'll wake up at 8 and want to go ride my bike, and I end up riding my bike because I don't want to wait. Yeah. As soon as I get home, it clears up. It's just, I want to be in the sunshine, not riding through like the mist on Highway 1 by myself with no lights.
Yeah.
So can be a bit nerve-wracking, but it's been pretty nice so far this year. We're just starting to get the fog to roll in now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think that's probably one of the most scenic races I've done. There's
Yeah.
the section back in the woods where like you go up the hill. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So that was Swanson Road. They took, you must have done it 2016 because 2017 they took out Swanson Road, and it was just
Okay.
along the highway. Because Swanson Road, as beautiful as it is not a very great road surface. It's a lot of potholes.
Right.
I don't know if you remember. Santa Cruz roads tend to be beautiful but
Well,
terrible
there's
roads.
a lot of like hard downhills and turns. It's more technical work back there too. I know.
For
That's
sure.
what I was going to say. I actually took out some cones in the final turn, getting back onto one.
I believe it. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that sticks out in my mind just because it was, so you're on one. If anybody listening, if you've not done it, not been out there, you're basically on like a cliffside road next to the ocean. So you stop paying attention to it, but you've got the kind of crash of the waves in your ears the whole time you're riding. And then as you dip off onto that side road back into the woods, everything is just ridiculously quiet in comparison. Like you could just hear other people's breathing. Nobody was talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like pedaling as hard as they could up a giant hill and just quiet. It was a really cool moment for me. It just sticks out of my mind.
Yeah, it's an awesome juxtaposition we have here in Santa Cruz. You can be in the water on the coast or surrounded by these giant, beautiful old redwood trees that you look up and they're just massive towers in a matter of like 6 miles or less.
Yeah.
It's just the variety is absolutely insane. It's a really, really awesome place to live.
So explain to me kind of, it seems like you've migrated across the country because you grew up in, was it Michigan or where?
I grew up in Michigan. So for those of you watching on the YouTubes, I'm going to do the quintessential Michigan thing where I'm going to pull out my hand because Michigan is shaped like a mitten or a hand. And I'm going to point to where I'm from, which is Metro Detroit, Birmingham, Bluefield Hills. It's about 20 minutes from Detroit, 45 from Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan. For those of you familiar with Eminem, the movie 8 Mile, I grew up on 15 Mile Road. So I'm like twice as hardcore as Eminem, or half, depending on which way you look at it.
Right.
I lived there until I was just under 18 when I left for college, and I went to the University of Colorado out in Boulder. Was there for 7 years, collecting 2 degrees because I didn't want to go to the real world. Stayed on for a master's degree, and then I got the job out in California, and now I'm here. I joke with my parents all the time, like, when are you gonna move back home? And I just say I'm gonna keep moving west, and eventually I'll get home. I'm just gonna keep going my way, and I'll circle back around. But Michigan was a great place to grow up, but I'm very glad I don't live there anymore. As someone who's pretty outdoor oriented and loves to be outside and exercise outside, the part of Michigan where I grew up is pretty urban and flat.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go north into the tip of the lower peninsula or up into the upper peninsula of Michigan, it's super pretty, super cold. If you like skiing and snowmobiling and ice climbing, it's an awesome place. So maybe I'll move back there one day, but for now, California, Colorado, the West have my heart.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would assume that Specialized has international offices, right?
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite parts about being at Specialized. We have an office in Boulder, and my boss actually works in Boulder. So I go back to Boulder to connect with him and work on some projects every 2 to 3 months in normal times. And so since I started college in 2010, this is the longest period of time that I haven't been at Boulder. It's been almost 7 months, I think. So I go back all the time. My sister lives in Denver. I have a bunch of college friends out there still, like Dan and Melissa, who were guests previously on the podcast. And it gets to the point in Colorado where I go visit and I send out text messages like, anybody want to grab a beer tonight or have dinner? My friend's like, we're busy tonight. We'll see you the next time you're in town. Thanks, guys. But yeah, Specialized has offices all over the world. We have an office in the Netherlands. That's our like CE, Central Europe. I actually don't know what that stands for. Office in the Netherlands. There's the tire team is in Germany. Our e-bike turbo team's in Switzerland. We've got like our triathlon marketing people are in South Africa and Stellenbosch. And then small business units throughout the world that deal with the retailers all throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who gets to travel for work to work with our pro teams, it's really cool to travel abroad and still feel like you're welcomed right away and have a family there. And also as someone who travels for races, it's been really awesome for me. I did both 70.3 Worlds in South Africa in Port Elizabeth, as well as in Nice last year. In both times, I've basically been able to stay in those countries for extended periods of time and hang out with specialized employees. They've provided me accommodation in their extra flat or on their couches or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then this past December, I got to go to Spain to work with Quick Step in both Dolmens, and ended up just going to Portugal for a couple of days just because I was out there and wanted to enjoy it. And found out at the last minute we had like a 3-person office in Portugal. I got in touch with one of the employees there. He comped me an entry to a 10K the day I landed, and I raced a 10K. He hung out with me. It was awesome. It's a really awesome family.
It's always kind of like, I always kind of feel like it's nice the way that something so, I'll say mundane, but just like something so ordinary as like running or cycling, like kind of brings people together. It's like,
It does.
I could be wrong, but I'm not quite sure there's the same kind of, maybe for the guys like and girls that really like to lift, but like if you go to the gym and lift weights, I don't feel like if you show up somewhere else, you're like, yeah, you work out at the gym sometimes. Like there's not the same kind of camaraderie. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, let's do it. And let's go do some curls.
Yeah. I almost feel like it revolves around having some kind of competition or like greater goal. For triathletes and cyclists and runners, you have your different races or your different fun runs or 5Ks. For people who like to lift, CrossFitters, you have CrossFit games, or you have Spartan races, and you have that stuff. And it's like you build family and community at those events. At least for me personally, that's how I've formed a lot of really awesome friendships, especially through the collegiate triathlon scene. I was on the CU team for 7 years, and some of my best friends from college went to University of Arizona, went to Colorado State, other schools within our tri-conference that we would see 5-6 times a year at races and hang out with after every race. And you go to nationals, then you all come together because you're trying to be the best conference. And it's really special. It's a special group of people. For as much as I like to make fun of triathletes sometimes, because we are an odd, quirky group of people, it is an awesome community.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're taking odd, quirky people to start with in the single disciplines, and then you're finding the individuals that want to do all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like that you're getting down to a niche that you can't help but just have kind of weird people in a fun, loving way. I mean, obviously, I very much belong to that group, but just you're going to have some oddballs, and that's okay.
Totally. Like I was saying earlier to you, totally okay to walk around in spandex at Specialized headquarters, but as soon as I put on my proper running shorts with the split seams that are quite short, I get 8 people poking their heads out the doors asking me where the rest of my shorts are and if I forgot them. So I wear that badge with honor, I guess.
Yeah.
Pride.
Well, I was thinking about that. I was kind of trolling your Twitter, and you were posting maybe a week ago about some big truck guy yelling at you in traffic.
Oh yeah, that was a weekend.
Yeah, so I don't feel like it's so much anymore now that I'm kind of on trails and stuff, but definitely like growing up, just in an area that we would be on the street running, we had people yell at us all the time. The most common run, Forrest, run.
Of course. I feel like you're not a true runner if you haven't heard that.
Right. It's like, okay, just get a new one. Like, give me something. All the way to, there was a time when we were running from our high school, basically the street that our high school was on, all the way down to the dead end, a couple miles away on that same road and back. Coming back, my friend Ryan, he was kind of in the group of us. This car comes by, rolls her window down, lobs a like 40-ounce orange soda at him, or at us really, and it hits him in the leg, leaves a giant welt. And luckily, our coach was actually out there, and in his truck, he took his truck and forced the vehicle off the road to like see who it was. And it ended up being like another student at the school, and they ended up getting suspended. So it's like, for once we get justice.
Yeah.
But it's like these things unfortunately aren't uncommon. So
No.
kind of what's your, I think you were talking about on Twitter about, just trying to keep your cool with somebody like that. How do you approach it? Is it easy to kind of lose your cool? I know I certainly have. Plenty of people have gotten the finger from me.
Yeah.
Not, maybe not righteously, but it's happened. You lose your cool.
Sure.
How do you approach that situation?
Yeah, and just to give some context to the listeners here, I was out on a long solo bike ride last Saturday. I was on my sparkly purple Specialized Venge, wearing a full purple cycling kit. And I was stopped at a light. The light had just turned green, or was turning green. And at that time, a person in, of course, a lifted pickup truck decided it would be a good time to roll down his window and yell at me, "You look like a homo." And I didn't really have time to process or think, because I was already starting to pedal and like move away from the intersection.
Mm.
I didn't quite realize he was talking to me at first, but I looked back and saw he was looking at me. And in that moment, all I could think to say was just thanks. Cause like, really, why is that an insult? Right? Why, like some of my most favorite people, the coolest, nicest, raddest people I know are gay. Like that's not an insult to me. Like it's a compliment. It's like, oh, thank you. You're calling me a good person, essentially. Like clearly that person is not. This is all stuff I thought about throughout the rest of my long ride as I was processing.
You have this conversation in your head.
Yeah, because at first I was like really angry and thought of all the things I wanted to say about having small genitalia or what have you, and so just kind of thinking through that, and then like an hour later I come upon another section of road with some graffiti spray painted on the road, and I knew there were a couple like Everest attempts going on in the area, so I turned around to see if it was graffiti for that, and it ended up being the SS lightning bolts from like the far right white supremacy white power group, and it just said like Zach and I think it said Zach and Sarah, two names, guy and girl, and it said white and proud. And as a Jewish person, that was concerning to me. It was a neo-Nazi group, and it's just and what's going on right now in Minneapolis and what we've seen throughout the country with racism and all the stuff that's going on. It's so confusing for 2020.
Yeah.
And I tend to be a pretty easygoing person and like to find the good in people, and I like to joke a lot. I put up a dad joke every week in the office, and right now I'm putting it up on Slack, and I'm always making jokes, always trying to get people to laugh. And I tend to divert to humor in serious times. So for me, it's not necessarily hard to keep my cool in that situation. Like I just kind of shrug it off and be like, whatever, like these people don't care, but it's just so hard these days. I don't really know how to process it to go forward and how to start speaking out against it. Because I think it's important. The time has come. The time has passed for people to start speaking out about it.
Right.
And as a straight white cisgender male, it's like I'm on like the lowest pedestal of like I feel like what my experience is and what I can speak. So all I can do is try and give support to those people who are truly affected by getting called you look like a homo, or seeing like the white power stuff. Because I mean, like I said, I'm at the lowest end of that pedestal, but I have plenty of friends that that is their life, and it breaks my heart to have to see them go through that on a daily basis. So I try to offer support and figure out ways to help people out.
Yeah, it's I wonder. And I wish I could remember which guest, because I know it was a previous guest on the podcast, and maybe it'll come to me. We talked about at the time, I think it was one of the guys on the show, talked about at the time basically how social media has traumatized us in a way.
For sure.
And I think about that in combination with how much like an echo chamber it can be.
Oh.
Where it's like people who want to be Nazis now, it's like, okay, so if you're listening to this and you're a Nazi, like, don't ever buy anything from me. Like, we're not compatible. but just like I don't need your business. I try not to take too political a stand, but like that one, I'm pretty positive.
That's not like a political stand. It's just like, are you a good person?
Right. Like I'm pretty okay with Nazis not buying from me, but it's like, so say you're a young Nazi and you live in a town with no other Nazis, like you'll probably grow out of it because people are gonna, tell you that's stupid. But then now we have this ability for people with these, I'll say, dumb ideas to come together and kind of like support each other in this like insane ideology. So it's like social media is good in the one hand that we can kind of, stay connected and share things like the podcast, or it's like, I get to talk to you, and by way, other people get to listen to, what you have to say about the stuff that's specialized, which is like, you don't have time or the wherewithal to have a conversation with every single person that wants to know about the stuff that's specialized.
Right.
But at the same time, we get, terrible byproducts too. So.
For sure. Have you heard of the comedian Bill Burr?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I listen to the Monday Morning Podcast, and I'm
have you heard
big Bill Burr fan.
He has an old bit about shame and like, why is shame bad?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard that?
I think so. It's been a little while.
Yeah, for his joke, he was targeting like body shaming and fat shaming. Yes. Like shame can be good. I'm not saying we should go out and body shame people. I think that's wrong. But shame, I feel like sometimes can be like, that's what Twitter is sometimes. Like you shame people. Oh, this person's a racist. Let's shame them. Like that's going on with the George Flynn, whoever the cop was that, kneed on George and
right.
ended up killing him, right? It's like post a picture of him, post a picture of his record, and shame the world, shame the police into arresting him, and shame the people into doing this. And
right.
It's almost like shame people into becoming better.
Right.
It's an interesting take, I guess.
Well, it's like, I think in Bill Burr's bit, if I'm remembering it right, he's talking about like you should be ashamed, because it's not healthy for you, or that's the gist. But it's like shame is this method of control, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Where we're saying, when we want to shame somebody, we're saying as a society, that's not okay. So I think maybe that's the argument, is like with fat shaming. It's like, I think I've never been overweight, so it's hard. I can't speak from experience, so it's complete conjecture here on my part. So take this with a grain of salt. But I feel like anybody that's fat, at least that I've spoken to, that I can have an honest conversation with, they're not unaware of it being unhealthy. It's not like they're oblivious to this. It's not like they don't know. So I think the conversation around that and fat shaming has been basically like, let's dial it back a little bit, because they already feel bad, and then some of the coping mechanisms they have basically help make them more fat. So let's dial it back a little bit and help them, love on them a little bit instead of shaming them. But then the argument basically that Bill Burr's railing against is that going too far the other direction, and instead of saying, okay, it's bad, going to the point of saying, no, it's perfectly healthy, it's fine, it's good. Okay, the pendulum swings back a little bit.
For sure. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah. So I don't know, we don't have a tangent about shame, but
yeah.
It's just interesting, like social dynamics and stuff. So one of my undergrad majors is psychology, so I'm interested in people.
Okay. Gotcha.
Math and psychology, I don't know what I was thinking. Actually, I wanted to play poker is what I was thinking. And those are the things I was interested in. But, so I've got kind of an interesting brain. So I did want to ask you, a little hard transition here. I did want to ask you about, let's get back on the rails. I think I saw something about you working on the e-bikes with the wind tunnel and stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. So my role at Specialized, I'm not assigned to one product group. So you have some engineers that work just on mountain bikes, some engineers that work just on road bikes, some engineers that work just on helmets, shoes, etc. The team I'm a part of, the greater team I'm a part of, the best way I can think to explain it is kind of like we're internal contractors. So we all work for Specialized, we're employed by Specialized, but we get loaned out to different teams depending on where the needs are. And so, I'll work some projects with the road bike team, some with the helmets, and some with the shoes. And I got to have my hands in a little bit of everything pretty much, which is really awesome for the triathlete in me who wants to be mediocre at a bunch of things, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really nice to have my hands in a lot of things. And especially since the wind tunnel is a tool for all of our products. Sometimes we'll have the e-bikes in, sometimes we'll have the road bikes in, sometimes we'll have shoes in. And so my job is a lot of research and development and doing initial testing and kind of guiding the engineers and guiding the product teams towards the direction they should go, depending on what the project goal is, and then have them run off and make the final design changes. So I can't say I really have too much of an effect on what our e-bikes look like or, what the specs of the e-bike are, but I get to do some of the earlier frame testing every now and again.
Okay. Again, before we got really derailed, which is probably my fault. I wanted to ask about the dimples we used to see on helmets and stuff. And this is just a personal curiosity. What happened to the dimples? Because I knew for a while it was all about it's just like a golf ball and it's really aerodynamic. Why did we switch from that back to smooth surfaced helmets?
I don't know the actual exact reason in terms of helmets. I would
a few frames, but it wasn't a ton.
Yeah, I think part of it is an issue with aerodynamics. You only start off knowing so little or so much about a topic, and that's what we knew. And as frame materials and just materials evolve and we learn more, and by we I mean the industry learned more about aerodynamics, there was a lot more that the engineers could do with frame shapes. And so they can actually shape the frames to be more aerodynamic. So instead of it being a truncated airfoil, it's a D shape that's actually made for aerodynamics.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of get those same benefits and more without the dimples. So that would be my best guess as to why that happened. I can't say for sure. But if you look at skin suits these days, you're going to see longer sleeves and more dimples. And that's actually something I've done a lot of work with in the tunnel is skin suits. Going back to that golf ball principle, the golf ball has dimples because essentially it helps the air have enough energy to get all the way around the golf ball and decrease that pressure wake. And so it can fly farther and faster through the air. If you think about a cyclist's arm, we're typically pretty skinny folk. We have pretty cylindrical shaped arms, and cylinders tend to be one of the worst shapes aerodynamically. And so air doesn't have a lot of energy to actually get around our arms, kind of like it wouldn't have enough energy to go around a golf ball. And so what we can do is, depending on the speed the suit is targeted for, the athlete's going to go, is we can include different fabric textures for different speeds. And so we'll basically do testing. We'll get a bunch of fabric samples in and say, all right, what fabric roughness is going to be the best for a suit for our sprinters that need to go, 50 to 60K an hour? And what about 40 to 50? And then 30 to 40K an hour. And we can pick different materials that we can include in different skin suits for those different speed ranges. So we can kind of fine tune those skin suits.
Okay. The one thing you mentioned earlier, working on not just the aerodynamics of things, but the thermodynamics of things. I wonder, I've always had an issue with overheating different materials. So how much of that is a concern now when you're trying to develop the skin suits? Since obviously you could be, not saying that this is accurate, but just say for whatever reason, if you dipped a rider in paint, that was the most aerodynamic thing we could do. Well, that wouldn't be very good because then they wouldn't, be able to breathe or get rid of the heat, and then they would overheat and not be able to perform.
Sure.
So aside from my absurd example, how much does that play a factor into kind of balancing the two objectives of being aerodynamic, but also dealing with the rider's body heat?
It's becoming more of an objective. We're pretty heavily focused on aerodynamics, as I think most of the cycling industry was. But it's actually a project we're really focusing on now, especially since we can do a lot of theoretical work at home in these times, getting a better understanding of the thermal balance for a rider while they're riding and how clothes affect that and how we can affect that with some products. If you think about a sleeping bag or a sleeping pad, when you go camping, I'm assuming you like to go camping here, but each sleeping pad,
camping, yep.
Good. Some sleeping bags are rated for different temperatures,
Right.
As well as some sleeping pads that have what's called an R value, or like a clo value, that
Right.
determines how well it insulates.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually have a tool at Specialized that we can measure that same value for the clothes we use. And so we can use that to pick clothing that's going to keep you warm in cold weather. But we're also starting to use that to figure out what is going to be a more breathable material. We can look at the color of a jersey or skin suit and see what colors are reflected and absorbed,
Mm-hmm.
and see how that can potentially affect thermoregulation there. It also has to do with the fabric itself and how well it can transport water and evaporate that water,
Mm-hmm.
and evaporate the sweat to help you cool if you're in a dry environment. So there's a bunch of these smaller pieces to the puzzle for apparel that we're starting to learn more about, and we're trying to improve for the next iteration of products. So that's a really exciting project that I'm a part of now, that we're kind of at the start of currently.
It's good to hear that somebody's working on it, because I felt like several years back when I was having such issues overheating in the suit that I had, and I've got a better suit now that's developed. It's got kind of a mesh back, and even the new one I have now, since I crashed and tore the other one, it's got the dimples on the shoulder and the longer sleeves. So obviously I have the triathlon stuff, and we have our own kind of needs, because we both have to be hydrodynamic and aerodynamic, which is a very complicated situation to try to solve with clothing.
Yes.
Yeah, because then you gotta have it moisture wick, but then it's an absolute mess, which is why you get like swim skins and stuff to go over your suit if you can afford them or whatever.
Generally, things that are fast in the air on the bike are going to be super slow in the water, and vice versa.
And vice versa, because like the thing about a wetsuit. I mean, a wetsuit's going to be fast in the water, but I noticed, although, speaking of Jesse Thomas, I think at Santa Cruz one year, he wore a wetsuit on the bike because it was so cold. Maybe it wasn't Santa Cruz, but I'm pretty sure he wore one.
So Matty Reed and Callum Millward in Boise.
Was that one?
20, I think it was 2013, maybe 2016, but they both wore their wetsuits. Oh, was it? I know it was Matty Reed. Well, Matty and Callum both tied in that race, a race. Maybe that was the same race, the wetsuits that they wore, but like the race in Boise was shortened to like 30-something miles. It was super cold, and a couple athletes just wore their wetsuit.
I was thinking it was Jesse for some reason. I think maybe I was like following both of Matty Reed and Jesse Thomas at the time. Yeah. Maybe that's how
Jesse could have. I mean, you very well could be right, but I know for sure Matty Reed did it in Boise.
It sounds more correct as you're saying it. So I'll probably like, I have no connection to Jesse, but if I ever talk to him, I'll probably ask him and be like, did this happen? And he'll be like, no, that didn't happen. That wasn't me.
It's a bummer we didn't have this conversation early January, as I presented at the Endurance Exchange conference in Arizona, in Tempe, with USAT. And my presentation was literally directly after Jesse Thomas spoke. And it was just like, well, this is great. Not only am I like the less fast Jesse, I'm the less attractive Jesse. He's got a picture of himself in like a Speedo on there. Yeah. I can't put that type of content in mind. And so we got to chatting a little bit after we gave our presentation. So that was nice to meet him finally as a fellow Jesse. I've been wanting to meet him for a while. Super nice guy, but I would have gladly asked him about that.
Well, see, I always felt a little twinge of jealousy. So I was trying to become a pro triathlete for a number of years, 7 or 8 years. I had to figure out exactly. And I always felt like, okay, I was going to be, a professional triathlete with a business. And not only could I not be a professional triathlete with a business, I wouldn't be the first Jesse pro triathlete with a business. I was just like, what? This is
why am I even trying? Yeah.
It was very, very tough. So if anybody listening who's not familiar with Jesse Thomas, he owns a nutrition company with his wife, and I think they have a third business partner, Picky Bars. It's like whole food kind of bars. I used to eat a ton of them, but I change my snacks out pretty regularly. You can get them on subscription, all that kind of stuff. So for a free plug for Jesse, because they are good.
They are good. And shout out to Jesse Thomas. Congratulations on retirement. He did recently just retire from professional triathlon to focus on Picky Bars. So good for him. Very, very exciting.
Honestly, I don't know how he did it to begin with. Like, just
I have no idea.
The time commitments is
plus having
nuts.
2 kids.
Yeah.
What? How? Yeah, impressive guy.
Yeah,
Easily the most impressive Jesse of this trio here. For sure.
I think that's 2 votes to maybe 1 against. Maybe he would vote for himself. I don't know.
I don't know.
As we're starting to run short on time, at least for you. So since you watched Dan Melissa's episode, you know my question I'm going to ask, I would think. I'm asking everybody this year, what do you think the purpose of sport is?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and I tried to think about it, and I was like, I can't come up with a good, succinct answer. But I'll start off by saying I think sport can be different for everyone. It can have a different purpose for everyone. For some people, it's their meditation. For some people, they solve all of their life problems on it. For some people, it's the community. And I feel like it even changes for me on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking earlier about how awesome the endurance community is, especially in terms of travel, and you can go meet someone and feel right at home. And I think for me, sport has given me an incredible sense of community, with just the people I've met, the opportunities I've been given through that community, has been really, really awesome. And it's turned into a social thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, don't get me wrong, I love riding my bike just to ride and running to run, but I like doing it more with other people. I like sharing that experience with people, getting to, ride down how I want. I look to my left and go, holy crap, and turn to my buddy and be like, are you seeing this? Like, how lucky are we? How privileged are we that we get the ability to do this in our free time?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really special. But as COVID's been happening, that sense of community has kind of been taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just kind of giving me like a connection to outside, which it always has, but it's kind of being elevated in the current times. And I try not to listen to music or podcasts too much when I'm actually outside on the road riding. I like to hear the cars, I like to hear the birds chirping, hear other people. And it's just been really nice to kind of back away from trying to go hard all the time and just being out there to be out there. I went on my first bike packing trip last weekend. I did an overnighter in Santa Cruz, just off the side of Highway 1.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so nice just to feel the wind on my face and just be outside and smile and see people joy on their face riding a bike or running or hiking with their families. So I don't know. I don't want to be cliche and say it gives me a sense of feeling alive, but it really can sometimes. It's the sense of being alive and the sense of community, I think, are the 2 biggest things for me with sport.
Well, I mean, there's something there, right? Where it's like you can go outside just about any time. I mean, even right now, you can go outside, but I think, and I'm a big proponent of don't listen to music. Don't do this. Like, if you're listening to this podcast while you're working out, I guess thank you, but maybe also,
if you are, go harder. You're not done with your interval yet. Suck it up.
Something like that. But it's like, just going out, not to be too hippie-ish, but it's just like, it's your time to kind of commune with nature and spend time with yourself inside your own head and kind of decompress, so to speak. We all have, especially in the U.S., very busy lives. Always something to go on. There's always entertainment to watch. There's always something. There's information overload, which is something I'll probably talk about with my next guest. So if you're watching this, stay tuned to that one. But it is one of the definite internal aspects of sport that I think we forget to connect to sometimes. That's so important beyond the competition, beyond the new PR, beyond, am I in shape, is like, am I connected to myself and the world around me instead of being just super busy, jarred, brains fuzzy all the time.
Absolutely. And if it helps you to listen to music to help you find yourself while you're riding, so be it. I'm not gonna tell you not to, but for me personally, it's not my cup of joe most of the time.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to a podcast last night while cooking dinner with Gus Morton, a former professional cyclist and former specialized gravel team rider.
Mm-hmm.
He was interviewing Anton Krupichka. I always butcher his last name. I don't know how to say it. Sorry, Anton or Tony. He's a ultra runner, has won Leadville a bunch of times. Now just does a bunch of big bike packing stuff and
mm-hmm.
other missions as he's rehabbing some injuries. But he was saying he loves going fast, but he also loves just enjoying being in nature. And he does trail runs all the time, and people are like, why don't you just slow down and smell the roses? And his response to that is, well, that's a much different experience than me running as fast as I can, jumping over the boulders. Like, I want to experience nature this way right now. I can appreciate stopping and smelling the roses, but for me right now, that's not how I want to do it.
Right.
I thought that was a really poignant way of saying that, how it can be so different for everyone, but also so different for one person on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jesse. So we know you've got Twitter. It's Twitter, obviously. Where can people find you if they want to kind of keep up with your antics, what's going on in the wind tunnel, what's going on in Specialized, all those kind of things?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at jfrank32. Those are the two main places. I don't have a TikTok. I've got enough distractions.
Yeah.
I just have my sister send me the best of TikToks, and I get other stuff on Twitter through TikTok. Those are the two best ways, I'd say.
Sounds good, man. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Take care.
You too.